At number 10, some background. The Mughal dynasty in India was founded by Babur, a descendant of the one, the only, Genghis Khan and Tamerlane. After he defeated a sultan of Delhi named Ibrahim Lodi in 1526, Babur was the first step in the Mughal dynasty that would last for over 3 centuries. To say that the empire was immense is an understatement. The empire ruled over 103 million people, probably even more. The Mughals were rooted in Muslim beliefs and were noted for their well-organized government and cultural sophistication. Many of the rulers tried to integrate the Hindus and Muslims under one state, but as we will find out from this list, it was not an easy thing to do, which ended up causing a lot of strife. Many rulers of the empire flip-flopped back and forth between being merciful and tyrannical towards the Hindus, adding to centuries of oppression. At number 9, blinded. Humayun was set to inherit the throne from his father, much to the jealousy of his brothers. He was 23 when he ascended the throne in 1530 after the death of his father. His brothers reigned over different fiefs, but none of them were satisfied unless they had the crown. He also wasn't the best ruler. Humayun was sent into exile for 15 years after he was overthrown by one of his father's generals, Sher Shah. Humayun fled and eventually ended up in Persia, where he built back up an army through his partnership with the Shah. Slowly, he took back his land, facing his own brothers who were constantly scheming against him. But Babur, his father, made him promise that he would never lay a hand on his brothers. But his brother Kamran continued to threaten him, and one instance while defending a fort turned on the innocents trapped inside and took their lives viciously. Kamran, not a good dude. Something needed to be done. He eventually catches his scheming brothers, blinds his brother Kamran, and chains his brother Askari. A little messed up, but not bad for war. At number 8, Akbar. Humayun continued to deal with the competition of his brothers until finally his reign came to an end, but not in the way that you would expect. He was carrying a bunch of books up some stairs and he accidentally fell, leading to a lethal head injury. His 13-year-old son Akbar had to inherit the throne. Akbar would later become known as the Great, but that doesn't mean that he didn't do some questionable things. Where his father failed to conquer, Akbar swept through. But just like his father, he encountered jealousy and dangerous ambition in the dark corners of his reign. In Delhi, an attempt to assassinate him was made, the bowman nearly missing him. Who was behind it? The slave of a nobleman who recently tried to start a rebellion. But the plot thickens. Akbar's foster brother's mother had further designs to establish power for herself through her son, Adam Khan. Khan actually ended up taking the life of Akbar's foster father, which led to Akbar throwing him down the stairs and therefore killing him. The mother died 40 days later due to grief. Grief over her son or the loss of power? Who knows? At number 7, Jahangir. So this guy was super impatient to become the ruler and was getting tired of Daddy Akbar taking his time. So he revolted. Damn, this court honestly was just rife with rebellion. They never got tired of it. In 1599, while his father was otherwise engaged and away from the palace, Prince Salim led a revolt. During the revolt, he even skinned a man alive. Akbar was pissed about this and wrote to his son and said, quote, "I have never skinned a bird alive in my life, and you have treated a human being in this manner." Jahangir then went on to conspire against a close advisor of his father named Abul Fazl, whom Jahangir killed in a small battle. Despite Akbar being devastated at his son's behavior, he was the only male heir left to inherit, so on Akbar's deathbed he forgave his son and implored the nobles to recognize him as a leader. At number 6, sewed to an ox. Now Jahangir was emperor, but the trouble didn't stop there. I saw some sources recognize him as a somewhat benevolent figure, while others said that he was the exact opposite. He was pretty brutal, and his first task was crushing a rebellion against that which his own son began. Apple, not far from the tree. He was traveling to Lahore when he came across 2 nobles who were sympathetic to his son's cause, so he decided to punish them in a very peculiar and violent way. He ordered that one be sewed to the skin of an ass and the other to an ox. Now that is messed up. When he got to Lahore to face the rebels, he crushed them and blinded his own son as punishment. A ruler couldn't have any impediment, so therefore his son could no longer pursue the role. Then he hung his son's followers outside of Taxali Gate. Yeah, so even within the confines of war, this guy had some pretty messed up ideas. At number 5, the horse and his boy. On the less violent end of the spectrum, Jahangir was actually a big fan of the arts, science, and worldly things. Unlike his father, who couldn't read and write, in an interesting skill for a ruler not to have, Jahangir was all about it. He really wasn't interested in military, which was a task he left to his son. But he did inherit his father's wealth, and considering he wasn't working in the military, he had time to indulge his curiosity. In his memoirs, there are fantastic paintings of exotic animals. There's a painting of a zebra that has a very funny story behind it. The zebra was being taken as a gift to the Safavid Shah, and it was traveling through the port of the empire. Jahangir heard about it and had it brought to court first, and didn't believe that it was real. He thought that it was a painted horse, so he had people try and wash them off. Only when the paint didn't come off did he realize his mistake and ordered that the wondrous creature be painted. At number 4, Shah Jahan and the Taj Mahal. Okay, so this one isn't messed up for violence or anything, but it is the ultimate love story and we just can't leave it off this list. There is one part that is messed up to me because man, I don't even know, but we will get to that. If you've ever been to India, then one of the stops you made on your trips was probably to the Taj Mahal, a breathtaking mausoleum built by the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan to commemorate the love of his life. Considering how big and intricate it is, you know that their love was bigger than any storybook. An Indian poet called the Taj Mahal a teardrop on the cheek of time, a testament to grief and power. Mumtaz Mahal was Shah Jahan's favorite wife, forsaking all of his other wives just to be with her. They went everywhere together, even on military missions. This is where, from my perspective, where things get crazy. This woman delivered 14 children for her husband. 14. Sadly, whilst giving birth to the last, she passed away, inspiring her king to build this massive structure. Both Shah Jahan and his love are buried beneath it. At number 3, brothers at odds. Shah Jahan's rule was considered the golden rule of the Mughal Empire, so how do you top that? Aurangzeb did not even bother trying, and he kinda sucked. He was Shah Jahan's third son, and he was a very military-minded man, showing tactical and strategic military skill and unrivaled determination. Whereas his brother was a man of letters, and no, not the kind from Supernatural. Aurangzeb wanted power, and so in order to secure his rule, he confined his ailing father to his own palace, caused the death of one of his brothers, and had 2 more of his brothers, a son and a nephew, executed. He was literally committing fratricide left, right, and center. But it didn't matter to him because he gained control. His desire to prematurely end the lives of those who stood in his way was described as, quote, a wolf thirsting for the blood of his brothers, end quote. You would think that this motivation to gain power and rule on his own terms would mean that he had big plans for the empire, which in a way is true, but those plans and changes led to a lot of oppression, but we will get to that in a bit. At number 2, staked. Before we get into the oppression that Aurangzeb caused to his empire, let's talk about Emperor Farrukh Siyar. Farrukh Siyar was emperor of the Mughal Empire from 1713 to 1719. He was described as an incapable ruler who gave his power to all of his advisors. His rule caused many conspiracies and plots to arise within the court. He caused a lot of people a lot of pain for his plight for power. With the help of his allies, he gave many of his enemies the gift of the big sleep, but by far the most ruthless thing he did was kill Jahandar Shah and Zulfikar Khan Nusrat Jung. What made their deaths so brutal was the fact that when they went the emperor hung their heads on poles, and just to add insult to injury, he made their parents walk at their funeral. Luckily for the people of the Mughal Empire, Farrukh Siyar was killed by unknown assailants at the instructions of his close relatives, putting an end to his awful reign. And finally, at number 1, the Great Oppressor. Aurangzeb's rule sort of had 2 chapters to it. At first, Aurangzeb was a capable ruler of a mixed Muslim-Hindu empire who was feared yet respected for his vigor and skill, but around 1680, Aurangzeb's rule changed drastically in both policy and attitude. His once unified people of both Muslims and Hindus broke apart, and people of Hindu faith became subordinates, not colleagues. On top of that, Aurangzeb added some more oppression to the mix and not only destroyed Hindu temples, but he also reimposed the jizya tax on non-Muslims, after the tax was initially banned by Emperor Akbar. For the first 20 years of Aurangzeb's rule, he did not impose a tax, but all of a sudden he started demanding these payments, and historians believe that Hindu uprisings are what caused the emperor to act harshly towards the non-Muslim population. This discrimination caused a revolt to unfold that Aurangzeb's third son supported. Aurangzeb spent his last 50 years taking his aggressions out on the Hindus in the empire, and it's for this reason that he is remembered by many as a tyrant.
Number 10. Hammam's baths. Bathing and hygiene are super important. At least that's what my mom tells me. That's why I do my best to shower more than once a week. I'm a man, and I can change if I have to. I guess. Well, baths were actually important to the Mughals as well, being that their heritage was a mix of Asiatic, Euro, Indian. They took a little from everything, and part of that was the Persian baths. The Persian baths were just one of those things they took. Called hammams. I hope I'm saying that right. They were social spaces to have baths, stay clean. It was very important back then. Now, bear in mind, if you will, I know some folks at home have issues with public pools because, well, you know, they're full of nastiness and, well, you'd be right, but today we have things to fight that. Imagine sharing bath water with the entire city and no one is wearing swim trunks. There's no chlorine pucks, vaccines are at least 1,000 years away, and diseases are rampant. Oh, and there's no toilet paper. Jump in, kids, the water's fine, it's nice and fun. Can you imagine? Imagine if I was in the water. You wouldn't want that. That's no good, that's gross. Ew, ew. Number 9, Babur the writer. I can relate to this quite a lot, actually. So Babur, the mighty warrior and king who brought upon the Mughal Empire, was a man to be respected. Or else it could wind you up in some serious trouble. I'd say hot water, but it's more like stinky bath water. However, while on the outside he was a super tough macho man, on the inside he was a softer, kinder man who not only enjoyed writing, but was also quite the socialite, just like myself. I like going to parties and meeting people, I like making friends. He loved his inner self so much that he started writing his own autobiography, started the trend of it actually. His was called Baburnama. Good name, I like it. And it detailed major events from his life. On the outside, Adam may look like a nerd, but on the inside, he's one of my dearest friends. I love Adam, he's a great guy. See, there's something nice. Usually we say something rude, but I said something nice this time. He's a great guy. Number 8, Akbar's tolerance. Medieval times. It's safe to say that these times became to be known for their religious persecution. It's kind of how it went. Queen Mary made a career out of burning heretics. Slightly disagree with my church, Protestant, even though our overall arcing beliefs are founded in Christianity, and the only thing that separates us is a list of beliefs that really we can work together on? Pff, I don't think so. Away with these heretics. Yeah, that's kind of silly. Well, all long-winded jokes aside, for being a medieval king, Akbar was actually very tolerant of others' religious beliefs. This tolerance of others' beliefs actually aided the Mughal Empire in expanding to other sovereign areas of India, making them a lot stronger than they really should have been. Number 7, the melting pot. Okay, so it's late at night and you haven't been grocery shopping in over a week. Guilty. You're too lazy to get up and get groceries, and you work early tomorrow anyway. Ugh, sucks. However, you're also too motivated, or cheap, to not order takeout, so that's when you raid the cupboard like a teenager looking for munchy Pop-Tarts. You know the feeling. You start throwing everything in a pan and seeing what sticks, throwing in spices that you haven't used in a month. After all, it's said and done, you're left with, well, whatever the heck that is. The verdict though, is actually pretty good. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Mughal Empire's religious melting pot of religions. I said it twice, but it makes sense. Another point to add here is Akbar's acceptance of other religious values was him coming up with his own called Din-i-Ilahi, which was the best part of Islam, Hinduism, and other smaller religions in the area. You'd be surprised how well those work together. Number 6, Shah Jahan's reign. A lot of times throughout history, the Mughal Empire kind of gets looked over. Most likely because of British invasion and because, well, the British took all their loot and art and national treasures and they're sitting comfortably somewhere in a British museum. But you're not getting them back, they're ours now. But that's the point. The Mughal Empire was no joke, and at one point in history may or may not have been the wealthiest empire on earth. A center for writing, arts, crafts, and treasures. They had the highest GDP in the world at one point. That's pretty impressive. Makes sense in how they could afford to build places like the Taj Mahal that apparently change color 3 times a day because of the sun and its pure white construction. Makes a lot of sense when you add it up. Number 5, house arrest. Classic story, really. Medieval times is also defined by kings and queens and emperors and leaders handing down their dynasties to male-born heirs. Has to be male, those are the rules, I don't make them up. And sometimes people attempt their best to, well, steal the throne or the crown from underneath their fathers, mothers, uncles, or really anyone who's got power and anyone who doesn't. It's kind of how it goes, a vicious cycle. Well, as successful as Shah Jahan was, even his own blood was out for him. His own son, I'm going to try and pronounce this, Aurangzeb. His own son Aurangzeb. That's a hell of a name. It sounds like a supervillain. His own son Aurangzeb put him and his sister under house arrest, doing his best to solidify his place in the throne. When it was all said and done, Shah Jahan had passed away, but sadly, due to his political strife and some family drama that is straight out of All My Children, he was not given proper burial rights, which to them was a big slap in the face. That sucks, dude. That sucks. You rule a country, you're nice to everybody, and then your freaking son just comes in and stabs you in the back. Number 4, Footloose. Remember Footloose? 80s classic movie, right? It's a good movie. It's a feel-good movie. With some decent music, too. The plot is a little rough, to say the least. I mean, what town would outlaw dancing? I mean, who in their right mind would ever do that? Well, meet King Aurangzeb, who banned poetry, music, dancing, and even some writings. May as well just throw Kevin Bacon and dancing in there while you're at it. As a small town, I'd be more worried about what those teenagers are doing after the dance party, not the actual dancing. Aurangzeb's concerns were that of religious reform, as in classic medieval times like previously mentioned. Well, as you can guess, this didn't go very well, as the empire was already a well-established place of mixed religion and arts and all the other beautiful culture stuff. Taking that away wasn't going to make the people happy, and it didn't. He struggled to maintain power of a successful empire like his father did. Ew, rough. It's you know, if you take over and it gets better, fine, but if it's worse, kinda awkward. Number 3, the Red Fort. As it turns out, the same architect who built the Taj Mahal also built many other Mughal Empire buildings like the Red Fort. You do good work, you get more work. As simple as that. It's the life of an actor. The Red Fort, originally white and red, hence the name, was the main residence of Mughal emperors after the capital moved from Agra to Delhi. At one point, even held the throne that was encrusted with the crown jewel of the Mughal Empire. It's where the business happened. It was an important building for the empire and culture that still stands today. On Indian Independence Day today, the Prime Minister raises the flag from the fort and addresses the nation. Number 2. Humayun's tomb. Okay, so we all know the Taj Mahal was built for a wife who had passed away by a grieving husband. Well, Humayun's tomb was built for a husband who had passed away by a grieving wife. The first garden tomb ever constructed, and honestly, when the editor pulls a picture up of this bad boy, it's pretty cool. Considering how old these buildings are, it's impressive it's still standing. Oh, and when I said wife, I actually meant mistress. It was a mistress. Built by the side chick, if you will. I wonder how the wife felt. Better not bring that up. If side building a palace, what's the wifey doing? Well, you know what I'm saying? Jeez. Number 1, British imports. Yes, the whole reason Britain tore down an empire and stole some tea and maybe some artifacts. I don't know, I haven't heard. Or rather had some solid importation of tea coming in every month. Whether or not these farmhands were paid, well, you get the point, you know where I'm going with that. However, more interesting, and I thought I had to bring this up because it's just so cool, was textiles. It sounds lame, but it's really cool actually. Textiles, cloth, silk, dyes, you name it. Europe did a lot of trade with the Mughals, but Britain, of course, Britain wanted a cap on the market, as 95% of their textile goods actually came from the Mughal Empire. So it just made sense to own the whole thing. If you're gonna get 95%, may as well just take the whole thing, just take it, it's yours. Number 10, unproud history. Blame it on my Canadian education, dyslexia, or me just being an idiot, but it took me 3 times to read over properly Mughal instead of Mongol. Mughal, Mongol, Mughal, Mongol. It also took me a second to realize that I'm talking about India, not Mongolia. It's okay, folks. I'm just gonna drink some water and touch some grass. I'll be okay. Yes, the Mughal Empire. As it turns out, my confusion is semi-appropriate, as the Mughals were descendants of the mighty Genghis Khan, hence the Mongols. Makes a lot of sense now that you think about it. Turkic Mongols, to be exact. The Mughals were well aware of the Mongols' reputation and their history. Let's just say they weren't too proud of it. You can't blame them. However, they were more proud of their Timur-sided heritage. Honestly, like I said, you can't blame them. It's kind of like your dad's side of the family, you know? They're okay, but everyone likes mom's side better. That's just how it goes. Number 9, Might of Ahoms. The Galactic Empire, the NCR, and the Mughals. What do all these large organized militaries share in common? They can all be defeated by a bunch of scruffy looking ragtags who spend too much time on mentats and in their X-Wings. All sci-fi jokes aside, the Ahoms were a tribal people who happened to live in the wrong neighborhood per se. Thing is, these guys had some serious grit, as in when dueling against the mighty Mughal Empire, they were not victorious once, twice, or 3 times, but a total of 17 times. 17, that's a lot. At a certain point, you gotta respect a group for kicking your butt that many times. At some point, you just gotta throw in the towel and say, hey, let them keep the land. They can have it. It's theirs. I don't need it. I don't want it. Number 7, science and big booms. We've come a very long way in history. Some might say too far. We've got cars, computers, and depending on who you ask, we've been to the moon. I say we have. It just makes sense. Come on, guys. I mean, come on. Obviously we have, because the moon is made of cheese, and that's where we get cheese, right? That's what my mom said. We eat cheese from there, right? Well, there certainly was no rocket ships back then, but the scientific advancement is what is to note here. The Mughal Empire was a big contributor of the Islamic scientific revolution, as there were many contributions in math, algebra, and other useful inventions. They were one of the first to use black powder. What does that mean? Besides fireworks, it means blam blams. And if you know history or anything about the time period, you know how important blam blams are. Part of the black powder empires, as they're called. Number 6, Taj Mahal. Husbands and wives. Marriage. Beautiful marriage. The whole sanctimony that brings lovers together. Now, I'm sure all of our viewers at home will agree in saying marriage was the best thing they ever did, and absolutely not a training experience after 15 years. Right, guys? Shah Jahan would agree with that, the mighty emperor who went great lengths for his beloved wife. Now, I'm sure you know this story, but in case you don't, this was the man that was so heartbroken from his wife's passing, so distraught, that he built the Taj Mahal. That's like your partner at home saying, you know what, babe, I love you so much. Bam, there's the Empire State Building. There it is, look at it. That's for you. The Taj Mahal is the crown jewel of Mughal architecture, and at the time cost around $1 billion with our inflation. Every year, the Taj Mahal brings thousands of tourists to witness its ivory beauty. It is a beautiful building, can't lie about that, but $1 billion? Man, you must have loved that woman. Must have loved her. Goddamn. Number 5, the Queen of India. So this massive and powerful empire, why is it not around anymore? I mean, in reality, we just don't do the whole empire thing anymore, unless you're Heisenberg, because he's in the empire business. But what's the main reason why they're not around anymore? Do you hear that? It's the Queen's Navy coming to shore, and the boats are chock full of redcoats. Look out, India, they're coming for your tea. Unfortunately for those living in India and the Mughal Empire at the time, this was sort of like the beginning of the end, as some years later, India would be brutally forced into one of the many colonies of the British Commonwealth. And yeah, did I mention brutal? Because it was pretty brutal. It wasn't the nicest of occupations. The British ruled over for many, many years, until a certain peace-loving Gandhi came years later and set the record straight. Number 4, relatable. King Akbar of the Mughal Empire was a very notable leader, but today I'm talking about him for some other reasons. One that I can relate to personally. No, I'm not a secret king and have a palace of my own full of servants, although, I mean, if you guys want to make me king, I wouldn't say no. It's well noted that Akbar was illiterate, which for royalty was rare back then, since that's usually the only people who can read or are allowed to read. Can't have the peasantry being too smart now, can't have that. However, some historians suggest that his literacy isn't to blame for a lack of trying, but it's dyslexia. Yeah, that's right. It's the same reason why I hated reading as a kid, and in high school, sorry English teachers, you can just Google Cliff Notes, it's the future. Akbar, however, did not have Cliff Notes. He had the option to hire artists to illustrate beautiful works of art in order to comprehend some things that needed visualization since he couldn't read. I did not possess such powers, however, still up to debate. You know, if you guys want to make me king, that's fine, I'm okay with it. Number 3, cholera belts. Okay, this one is just too weird not to mention. So in the end of the Mughal Empire, there were lots of British around. That's kind of how the occupation goes, lots of redcoats and whatnot. However, it wasn't exactly an easy job for the British either. Some folks just don't like being ruled over. I wouldn't. Interesting enough though, there was also a fair share of sicknesses going around. And when you think about it, I mean, you take a whole bunch of people, mix them in with another population of a bunch of people, to a place they've never been before, added with it's not the most hygienic time in history, sprinkle a little hot weather, and yeah, people are probably gonna get sick. Cholera, to be exact. Cholera was a big one. So what's the solution? How do we cure this cholera? Is it hand washing, hygiene? So, you know, do we keep our distance? What do we do? Well, the answer was cholera belts, and basically it's just a piece of red flannel fabric to wrap around your belly. That's how you cure cholera. At the time, cholera was thought to be caused by a chilly or cold belly, so warm up your belly, no more cholera. But in India, where it's really hot, and places like that around there in the Mughal Empire, it's kind of hot anyway, so I don't know why you need that. It really add up. Number 2, diamonds. The Koh-i-Noor diamond was literally the crown jewel of the Mughal Empire. A jewel worth more than anyone could really handle for the time, and definitely today. It's too much for you. You don't want it. Too much pressure. You can never sell it. It used to be encrusted upon the Mughal throne, but after some violent disagreements, it was stolen, and it passed hands, where it then went to someone else, in their hands. And after that, then someone else had it. And then somebody else had it. And then, like a trinket your grandma tries to give you, it probably sat in her basement for a very long time, before then it ended up in the hands of, oh, blighty yourself, Queen Victoria. Who else? And either if you think that's fair or not, it's been a part of the British crown jewels ever since. Because they take stuff, that's what they do. Number 1, Anna Carly. A classic tale of love and betrayal, and maybe it actually didn't happen. Historians aren't too sure about this one, but if it is true, oh baby, what a juicy story. Anna Carly was a poor peasant, but worked her way up to becoming Akbar's wife. But she also tripped, fell, and landed in somebody else's bedroom, if you know what I mean. Naturally, Akbar was cheesed, so he did the next sensible thing and had her buried alive in the walls like Bowser did to the Toads in Mario 64. However, no amount of Power Stars could help us find out if she really even existed. The story of the Forbidden Love, however, has been retold countless times in Asian culture. I was going to go for a Count of Monte Cristo reference that was stuck in the walls, but I feel like you guys know Mario 64 better. Pop culture beats books, right? Who reads books?
Number 10, the dedication of Eclavia. You know what you shouldn't do as a teacher? Make a student who is really talented self-sabotage themselves so they don't beat out another kid, which is exactly what happened to Eclavia. Eclavia was a very talented young boy who lived deep in the forest among his tribe. He wanted to become the best archer in the world, and he was very well on his way to becoming it. However, when he asked to become a student of the great Drona, he was denied due to his poor social standing. But Eclavia was not deterred. He built a statue of his idol instead and let it inspire him as he practiced archery every day. He became so skilled that when Drona learned of this, he was afraid he would surpass his best student, Arjuna. So he demanded Eclavia payment for studying under him, even though it wasn't technically under him, in the form of his right thumb. Then, sadly, this story doesn't really have a happy ending. The boy cut off his thumb right there and then, forfeiting his dreams of becoming the best in the biz. So overall, work hard to get where you want to, and then give over to jealousy and let someone cut your thumb off so that you'll never achieve it. Number 9, Manushwa. Confusing and terrifying? We love a little bit of everything here on Bumblebee, which is why I bring you Manushwa, a terrifying creature / demon that delights in scratching the faces off its victims, a very specific thing, leaving them for dead. No one quite knows what it looks like, but the most common description is a hairy spider with soulless eyes. Spiders already have soulless eyes, I hate them. They are known for attacking only at night and sometimes cause strange blackouts before they attack. Now, many believed for a long time that it was simply the stuff of legend, a scary bedtime story told to make sure children behave. But in the early 2000s, the town of Kanpur, India blamed several attacks on the creature. Several people reported attacks at night and awoke with strange abrasions on their faces. Even more mysteriously, the victims entirely blacked out on the events leading up to it. Police as well as civilians became so convinced that it was real and it was attacking their community that they led special searches at night. But then, almost as soon as they had begun, the attacks stopped, leaving behind yet another legend of a bedtime story becoming real. Number 8, the devotion of Surdas. Genuine question for all of you. If you saw the most beautiful thing, place, person in the world and knew that nothing else would ever be as perfect, would you wish to keep your sight or have your sight taken away because nothing would ever come close to it? Personally, I'd probably keep my sight because you never know. But Surdas was so devoted to Lord Krishna that he had his sight taken away again. He loved Krishna so much that he wrote song after song in his praise. Surdas was a blind man but had a heart for music. One day Surdas fell into a well and Krishna saved him. Radha, his companion, became jealous and against Krishna's orders saying to stay away from him, she went to him anyways. As she passed, Surdas clutched onto her anklets. When he wouldn't let go, she revealed herself, but Surdas couldn't confirm her identity, so he held on. Krishna then graced him with vision and let go of the anklets. He was so stunned at having finally seen his hero that he asked to be blind again, as nothing would ever come close to it. My question is, if he was blind since birth, how would he even know what Radha looked like to identify her? Would he just have been overwhelmed by her amazing goddessness? I don't know. Number 7. Nishidak. Have you ever turned around at your desk thinking someone just called your name? Or could you have sworn you heard someone say your name walking home alone at night in the dark? This has definitely happened to me, and it certainly makes me wonder whether there is a supernatural reason. Otherwise, why does almost every culture have a myth related to voices in the dark? The Nishidak from Hindu mythology is a dark entity that lures travelers deep into the forest areas by making it sound like a loved one is calling to them. This is the moment where curiosity could kill the cat, because if it got the better of you, you could end up dead. The voices will lead you to a deserted area away from prying eyes, and then snap, it will devour you. But what if it's actually someone I know who needs help? Well, there is one way to tell. Wait for them to call a third time. The Nishidak can only say your name twice, so if it no longer says it again, keep moving, as it is surely the Nishidak. Number 6. Nail Ba. Part of the role that mythology plays is to establish rules and boundaries for society, especially children. If you don't want a young one playing by the river alone, you tell them a scary story about a monster who lives there, so they won't go near it. But did they really have to go this hard with this one? Damn! Nail Ba is a terrifying, dark, demonic spirit that walks the streets visiting people's houses. Her name has been written on the doors and walls of small towns and villages in rural Bangalore to deter the spirit from entering. Some variations of the myth say that she is the spirit of a wandering bride seeking her husband. If you open the door to receive her, she will take the man of the house and bring bad luck to the household. Another version says, which is kind of where it gets confusing, says that should you open the door in the first place, you will be cursed to die within 24 hours. Apparently she speaks in the voices of your friends and family in order to appear more trustworthy. Villagers write her name on the door to ward her off, as they should. Number 5. Boba. I love all the legends that circulate sleep paralysis. If you have ever experienced it, you know how terrifying it can be. We know that it is a global phenomenon, as most cultures around the world have lore surrounding it. The one that belongs to Indian mythology is the boba. When people experience sleep paralysis, symptoms often include seeing shadowy figures, you're unable to move, there is pressure on your chest, pretty much having a nightmare while you're awake. The boba is said to be a horrific creature who causes it. Made of shadows, the boba's entity preys on those who sleep on their back. Very specific. So no side sleepers here. It strangles its victims to death while asleep, and it is said to be a paranormal explanation for sleep paralysis. So side sleepers, like me, you're safe. If you sleep on your back, you're in trouble. Number 4. Hiranyakshipu. Is it better to be feared or respected? Respected, obviously, that's what I think, because hopefully no one will be looking to stab you in the back if they're so afraid of you, you know what I mean? So it was only a matter of time for the self-proclaimed king of demons, his words, not anyone else's. Even his own son was like, nah dad. Even though he wasn't the one who did it, he wanted everyone to believe that he created the universe and that he was uncontrollable. His son was, of course, one of the ones who refused to take his belief. Not a good look for him, so he of course tried to kill his own son. No love when you're the king of demons, apparently. But every time he tried to even harm his son, he walked out of it unscathed. The reason? Vishnu was protecting him the entire time. But how would they get rid of his father? Well, because he could not be killed by a human, deva, or animal, Vishnu created a blend of creatures, creating something entirely different. It was called Narasimha, and one day at twilight he laid on the king of demons' lap and disemboweled him with his claws. I feel like the king of demons was like, oh look, a kitty thing, oh no, ah, and then died. Number 3. Raktabija. This dude seriously sounds terrifying, and I don't know how anybody beat him, but they had to create a whole god to get rid of him. Raktabija wasn't just one demon in Indian mythology, he could simultaneously be hundreds, thousands, millions. If one drop of his blood hit the ground, another Raktabija would form, and worse than that, the creature would actually get more powerful when a new version of himself was formed. It was like a huge narcissistic thing. I'm not sure how that works, especially since he's only a tiny baby part. Like, whoa, I'm so powerful. As you can imagine, he was incredibly difficult to defeat. Every time he spilled blood, it was like, whoa, there's more of you. So the gods combined all of their power and created Kali, the destroyer of demons. A grotesque looking goddess decorated with bloody limbs. You know the one, the lady with the multiple arms dancing about. Yeah, an equally fierce demon to face Raktabija. During their battle, of course, his blood poured onto the ground from his wounds, creating thousands of demons. But instead of letting the blood drop to the floor, Kali pierced him and drank all of the blood so not a single drop would hit the floor. And that was how she destroyed him. Kind of like the OG battle vampire. Number 2, Putana. It takes some guts to take on the dude who was literally born to destroy you, but Putana thought she could do it. Putana was an evil demon who was passionate about taking the lives of the young. Needless to say, not someone you want at a daycare. When baby Krishna was born, it was foretold that he would destroy all the demons. Literally his job. So Putana thought she could take the guy out early. She disguised herself as a beautiful young woman, laced her breast with poison and entered his room. Because of her disguise, nobody thought twice, and so she sat down to feed the babe. But unfortunately for her, she made a huge mistake. Krishna was born to destroy demons, never mind the poison, and as he fed from her, he sucked her life away instead. Putana died in absolute agony, and Krishna assured everyone that he was here to do one thing and one thing only: his job. And last but not least, number 1, Mahishasura. Look, I can understand appreciating the beauty of an animal, but when is thrown into the mix, we gotta pull the reins on that. I know Zeus from Greek mythology was all about that as well. It just seems to be a thing that gods like to do across the world. It's a global thing. Remember the King of Demons? Well, this was another demon king who was the son of the King of Demons, but not the one previously mentioned. But anyways, his mother was a buffalo. His father had fallen in love with the beauty of a buffalo and married her. Mahisha means buffalo and Asura means demon in Hindi, therefore buffalo demon. No man on this planet could kill him, and he was a very confident dude. He started a war with the people and won. His power knew no bounds, because of course what man could kill him? However, there was a catch. A man couldn't kill him, but a woman could. But what woman could kill someone so strong? So the gods created the goddess Durga, and she waged war on the tyrant, finally fulfilling the prophecy. Boy oh boy, do I love a loophole.